gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for May 24th, 2023. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, PSVR2 is doing better than previously reported, and Nintendo is still trying to kill 3DS homebrew. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Jesse Don Cabeza Norris. Jesse, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, playing a game I can't talk about.
Yep, there's a lot of those right
fun.
now. Yep.
Always weird. But yes, a real busy, ridiculously busy few months into a bit of a lull as June goes on. So I'm doing pretty good.
Jesse, you are now notorious as the Redfall liker, the man who likes Redfall.
Not the most.
Not the most. But
I tied with Dual Shockers, and then there was a couple above us.
Yes, that's right. So. I remember because I've seen you kind of go through it a little bit because of that. I've definitely had a similar thing when I gave Assassin's Creed Unity, I believe, a 93 out of 100. And I like that game. I cannot help that I like that game. I gave it the score I thought it deserved because I think it was the investigation missions that really put it over the top for me. I'm like, I love this. This is very cool.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm like, I beat that game, enjoyed it. Yeah, it had some bugs. Bugs don't really bother me. And then, boy, that was just not the score anybody else gave it. And it's definitely the kind of things I know you were talking about. Your podcast co-host, Nick, was saying people are going to give Starfield, some reviewers are going to give Starfield a wild score to stand out. And it's like, man, I hate standing out with my review scores. It's scary because you come at people with your opinion. And what else do you have other than how you feel? And none of that is like really subjectively or objectively true. And so sticking out kind of feels like you're putting yourself out there. Is that how you felt?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't know what other people are going to give. So a lot of will go like, oh, read the room. And I'm like, how? How could I have read the room? I was playing this on my own before anyone else did. You don't know. You might have a few friends here and there you talk to. You get a general feeling. And the general feeling I got from talking with other people was, it's not nearly up to par with what their other ones were for me, but it's not terrible. But then a lot came out and they're like, this sucks. And like, oh, shit. Okay. Well, and I was way higher. I like Gotham Knights a lot more than most did. I gave it a low 8s, I think. And then that one didn't do very well. I'm like, I don't know. I guess I really like these co-op open world games that run like shit in Unreal Engine 4. So,
Yep.
It's that mix because people say reviews should be objective, and it's like, no, they can't be.
Yeah,
you can only see it from your subjective take and try and fill it up with as many objective facts to give people an idea of what the game is. But in the end, it's going to be your opinion on what that game was for you, and there's no way to get around that. So
yeah, the kiddo is throwing a fit back there. I believe she said she could not get the kitty bell in Super Mario Odyssey, and she is pretty mad about it. Hey, bring me the Switch and I'll help you, kiddo. All right. Let's try to get. Let me help her real quick. Come here, kiddo. Come here. You okay? Come here. Yeah, it's okay.
No.
Yeah, it's tough stuff. Come here.
She gets too mad. She might punch that thing.
She's already been punching the chair over here. She's a true gamer.
That's
all right.
That's
so why isn't this responding, kiddo? Let's see. Oh, let's try fixing that. Okay, so what do you
Super
need?
Mario Odyssey, the only game that Special Nick says is a 10 out of 10. His favorite ever. The man loves him some Nintendo.
Okay. All right, there we go. We solved the problem. All right, hang on. She's gonna freak out. We'll be right back, everybody. Hang on.
Avoid the freak out. Hi, everyone. How you doing? Being a parent is a wonderful thing. It's not always sunshine and rainbows, but you grow as a person. You've got this little human, and they're working their way through figuring out what life is, and it's really something. Even when they're 18, it's not over. It never ends, in fact.
Yeah, Mama's out of town, so she's on one right now. She's kind of been emotional these past couple of days, which I always say Grubb's run hot, which is a code for I cried a lot as a little boy. And by little boy, I mean like 17. So who am I to be like, hey, don't cry in the middle of my show? I totally get it. No. All right. You know what? Let's get into this mess. But before we do, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you were watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with PlayStation VR2 outsold the original PlayStation VR during its first 6 weeks. This comes from Chris Kerr at GameDeveloper.com. The PSVR2 outperformed the original PSVR during its first 6 weeks on shelves. A slide from Sony's recent business segment presentation shows the PlayStation VR2 consistently sold through more units than its predecessor during the respective 6 week launch window. The image, which I have right here, let me see if I can bring it up. The image does show that that is the case. It's kind of just tracking a little bit ahead there, although you can see those lines beginning to converge a little bit at the end of the 6 weeks, where it looks like the PSVR could catch up. But for now, PSVR2 is outselling it. The number that Sony gave, and this was during a conference call like with investors where they answered a bunch of questions about PlayStation, is 600,000 units through the first 6 weeks. And that is sold through. So that's sold through to consumers, not just shipped to stores. That number is, I think, pretty okay. It's not some stellar thing. It's not as bad as like, 300,000 units and you got to start dropping the price immediately. It's in that zone of they can take this and build on it, especially if we come out of the showcase today with a bunch of PSVR2 games that are very exciting. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is just going to be, because it is, unlike most of VR, it is a locked ecosystem. They just need games. So if they can keep pumping out software, then they've got 1 billion freaking consoles already out there sold. So they're making these things and they've got the software. The big one being Half-Life Alyx. I'm curious if Valve would ever give that up, because that is probably like one of the best games ever made in VR. I tried the not VR version and it's not built for that. But if they could get Half-Life Alyx, and I don't know that they're going to do a ton of like first party, but just have some good stuff, like decent cadence for it. Yeah, I think it can survive, essentially.
Yes, I think it's well into the they can make this work territory. Absolutely, where it's going to come down to that software support. Now, I'm still skeptical about that side of things, and I guess I'm not too surprised that this is the number. This is the number I was expecting to hear originally, and that's why like that those Bloomberg numbers. It's like, that's way worse than what I was expecting. So 600,000 sounds like the amount of dedicated PlayStation fans that are going to show up for what PlayStation offers them. And yeah, it's $550. We don't care. We love Sony PlayStation. We're going to buy these things. That's a big number, and that sounds about right for that kind of audience. I think the long-term prospects for this thing, again, there's nothing written in stone. There's no reason that they couldn't make it work, other than it may be difficult because there's not a ton of developers out there. Things we've talked about a million times before. Not a ton of VR developers out there. The Sony's appetite for investing in that space, even if it does have a huge appetite, are there developers to give that money to? And then really, honestly, do they want to be investing a ton of stuff in that when it's trying to also make live services work? It's its biggest games are only getting more expensive. We're going to talk about it. They have plans for an aggressive cloud initiative. They have a lot of stuff, a lot of irons in the fire. So is VR2 going to be something they want to invest in? Well, 600,000 units out of the gate, that's probably something that's worthwhile. So I think that's good news. Do you think that this means like we can expect to see them making new PSVR2 games and investing this in a big way, similar to what they did with PSVR1?
It hasn't felt similar yet, so I'm just not sure. Like on their end, they've had some stuff. They've got like, I think their bigger things are still mostly going to be third party and paying for like the Resident Evil VR
exactly.
exclusivity.
A lot
again,
of VR modes
stuff.
in bigger games, right? That's we'll probably get a lot of that stuff. I think we get a lot of that stuff today at the showcase. That sounds right. I 8% ahead of the PSVR. The PSVR did not like immediately sell a ton. I think that they probably didn't make a lot of PSVRs out of the gate because they weren't sure how it was going to sell. And if I looked at the numbers, it took about a year and a half to get to 1 million, a year and change, not quite a year and a half. But then by the end of that second year, it was already well past 2 million. And then a year later, it was at like 4 million. So it picked up in sales. And I think this start is good, but it's like you would expect maybe some of that momentum of like people believe in the PSVR to carry over maybe a little bit more. Still, though, I think that Sony it has to be happy with this, because it's you're relaunching, you're starting from scratch with the PSVR2. A lot of the backwards compatibility stuff didn't carry over. This is something that they can work with. We'll see. I think it really, a big part of it does come down to today at that showcase. I think I previously said that I think they'll have 3 or fewer games. Based on these numbers, I wouldn't be surprised if they make some big promises about, here are all the things we're planning to do, and we have a lot of stuff in the works. And I think we'll hopefully hear about a lot of that today.
I don't think their first party will be like bespoke VR a ton. I think it'll end up being more GT7 style, where when it makes sense to have a VR mode type of thing. And another issue is I don't know that there's nearly as much appetite for VR now like there had been.
Yeah. Do you want one?
Not a PSVR2, because I got a Quest 2 that I run wirelessly to my PC.
Okay.
Which just has a bajillion games and everything. My kid has a PS5, but like the thought of spending $550 for a VR headset that only works there, and I got to rebuy everything, is just, it's not super tempting for someone who already has a good computer setup. I
think that it's the price drop still being on the table down the line is something that Sony could pull the ripcord on. They don't have to do it this holiday, like I previously thought they might had to do, but they could wait a little bit, and that was definitely part of the PSVR selling really well later in the generation. There was still quite a bit of demand, and then they dropped the price, and then everyone bought it right then. I remember like those sales. Everyone's like, "Oh, I got a PSVR. I got a PSVR this holiday. I bought one for a friend for a gift." So I think that they will try to replicate that a little bit. And as I'm curious, as the price drops, that's when I might get in. They haven't seemed to be in the price dropping market. No, anymore. No, that's what I'm curious about. Do they get back into it for this? So, because they're like, well, we raised prices and then no one really complained, and we kept selling everything we could put out. So, I mean, in the end, I wonder where we'll talk more about it, where their focus in the future is going, and broadening their horizons and being more Nintendo like with less price drops seems to be their future. Definitely the case for their software and the PS5, I think, which is why I'm continuously curious about all these rumors about a PS5 Pro. It's like, how much is that going to cost? Almost certainly more than $500. Like if you're going to do an actual Pro version right now, then you should just go all out and make like a $700, $800, $900 super console for once. Like that hasn't been really done. If you can have your affordable option at $550, because it's mostly bundled here in the States, so it's pretty much $550 everywhere. If you do like an $800-900 legitimately way more powerful version, then I think it would probably do really well. People still spend that much on their goddamn phones every year or two, so yep. All right. Well, I think Sony will probably be bold. I don't know if they're going to be $900 bold. They'll probably come in at like just a hefty $600 and be happy with that. But we'll see. Again, showcase is going to be the big thing. We'll be talking over that today on giantbomb.com. So if everyone wants to watch along with that, that would be great. We'll be doing that after Four Swords Fiesta. All right. There's a ton of Sony stories based on this conference call that they had, explaining a lot of what's happening over there, giving a lot of numbers. Honestly, it was very similar to what they used to do at E3, back before E3 became this just commercial blitz. It was Sony starting with the PowerPoint presentation and charts and sales numbers and things like that. Well, they're still doing that, but they're just breaking it out, and they're not going to do that at their showcase like they used to. So PlayStation says it will soon reveal aggressive plans for cloud gaming was another thing that happened there. This comes from Andy Robinson of VGC. Sony Interactive Entertainment says it has, quote, aggressive plans for the cloud gaming space, which it will reveal in the next few months. That's according to CEO Jim Ryan, who claimed during a business call on Tuesday that the PlayStation firm would reveal its plans over the course of the coming months without elaborating further. He said, "We observe mobility and gaming habits to be an increasingly important trend, and the cloud will be fundamental to allowing us, or indeed anybody else, to exploit that trend. Unfortunately, today is not the place for me to disclose these plans, but we do have some fairly interesting and quite aggressive plans to accelerate our initiatives in the space of the cloud that will unfold over the course of the coming months." PlayStation, of course, has experimented with cloud features for over a decade with its PlayStation Now service, now rolled into the PlayStation Plus service, representing one of the early pioneers of the space. However, there is currently no ability to stream PlayStation games to mobile devices, which is a key feature of its console rival. Is that, I mean, from the cloud, you can stream games from your PS5 to your mobile device locally, right? I haven't messed around with these features, and I remember that you used to be able to stream games to your phone. Did they get rid of that completely?
No, I think they still have that.
Yeah, so
I think they still have remote play.
Andy might mean PS5 games. Like, I don't think you could stream PS5 games to your phone.
They don't have PS5 in their cloud, as far as
right,
I know.
They haven't
had
like replaced their blades with PS5.
It was mostly, it's still mostly PlayStation 3, and then they've got some PlayStation 4, and they still haven't done PS5. And I'm wondering now, with all their PC versions, do they just go for PC versions of their games in the cloud? Because if you can do that and leverage other people's services or something along those lines, and you get Call of Duty, if you have your own cloud service now, you get all the ABK games if you sign your free license with after the EC deal. Maybe they just go with their PC. I don't know that they'd want to build up a whole PS5 network, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's some signs that they want to. Jen, I'm going to jump ahead and then we'll jump back. Sony has launched the Backbone 1, a PlayStation Edition controller for Android. This comes from Tom the Machine Ivan. The Backbone 1, the PlayStation Edition, an officially licensed controller for playing games on mobile, is now available for Android. Like the iPhone version, which launched last year, it's inspired by the look and feel of PS5's DualSense wireless controller and is priced at $100. Backbone 1 PlayStation Edition is powered by the user's phone, meaning separate charging isn't required, and it can connect directly to PS5's Pulse 3D headset via its 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. It can be used to play PS4 and PS5 games streamed via remote play, as well as other game streaming services that support controllers. Backbone 1 PlayStation Edition works with Google Play and App Store titles, including games like Call of Duty Mobile, Fortnite, and Diablo Immortal. I think that maybe they are probably going to start offering up PS5 games for streaming, but I wonder. I know that they're hesitant about that because they want people to just buy a PS5. Maybe they just continue to stick to remote play, and remote play has worked a lot better with PS5 recently. But he says aggressive plans. What else could those be? I mean, maybe it's that handheld device that's been rumored and seems to be all but confirmed. And maybe that'll have a cloud side instead of just remote play aspects to it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for that device to be anything people want, it should connect to pretty much every cloud service. And at that point, if you're putting out a phone device that can either remote play to your console or play cloud games, you should probably have your own cloud service to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and for people who don't remember or weren't paying attention at the time, there's a rumor going around. I can't, is it part of the InZone line that they have or whatever? But Sony has a rumored handheld that looks a lot like a Vita, but the actual way it's going to work is it's supposed to just kind of tap into your PlayStation 5 through remote play, and it's going to be like a remote screen with the controls built in for your PS5. And then that was going to be, it seemed to be the limitation of it, but why wouldn't they just offer up a cloud service to work alongside with that thing to really make that device worth the time and effort that people might put into it? That makes a lot of sense to me. Maybe Sony sees things differently, but
yeah, like if they get their PC ports into GeForce Now, that works on pretty much everything. Like it's already there. It's literally just the press of a button to activate those things. And it would be a lot like the G Cloud that Logitech put out, which was pretty weak local hardware, but a nice screen, a big battery, and a good built-in controller. And you could stream games on that thing for like 14 hours straight before it would die because it wasn't doing anything locally but encoding video. So, and
if you position that device as an important part of the PlayStation ecosystem, that does feel appropriately aggressive to me. If that's like you're like, this is is the other way to get into the PlayStation stuff. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that works for me, and that does feel like them making a big play. It's not as big of a play as making a new PlayStation portable device, like dedicated PlayStation portable device with internal hardware. But yeah, this makes sense if you see the cloud as your future. And he says the mobility of players, I think he mostly means just playing on different screens, no matter where you're at. But it wouldn't be a bad idea to actually go whole hog with that and actually make your own mobile device and make that central to this cloud.
I don't think they want to do another bespoke platform that they have to make bespoke games for.
That's exactly right.
Like the Switch works because it's just Switch. You just make a game for the Switch. That's what Xbox is going for with xCloud, their Series X and S. You just play it on the cloud. You're getting that same version. If any of them ever did a portable, if Xbox in a few years with die shrinks and stuff could get a portable Series S, they'd 100% do it. But that's about the only way you're getting a full local native portable version of anything from either of those companies, I think.
Yeah, and it's you get why it would be enticing to be like, man, we should just make another PlayStation portable device, and because we have so much momentum going forward with PlayStation right now, we could conquer the world. It really comes down to that, like you said, bespoke software, having teams that can make games that feel like they fit the platform and are worth it to people. Yeah.
And they're trying to do that right now with PSVR2. So then you just add on another platform to have your, collection of studios and partners to work on, and eventually it just becomes too much and you stop supporting it pretty quickly.
And, based on what we know today about PSVR2, it doesn't seem like they're doing the full court press of every developer is going to have something for PSVR2. It's like, yeah, we'll have a handful of things, and really we're not even going to have as much as we had for PSVR. Now, again, that could change today with that showcase, and we'll see, and I hope it does. But as we know it today, it's, there's Call of the Mountain and a bunch of stuff from your Quest. And so, okay, all right, fine, $550, all right. And it's like, if they tried something similar with a dedicated handheld, that really wouldn't fly. I think VR's a special case. It can kind of work. It is still a bit of a novelty, even though not that, like you said, that novelty is worn off for a bit for most people. It's still
a unique thing. Like there's no other way to play a VR game than in VR. And a lot of handheld games are just smaller versions of what we already play. So it's not like a transformative experience.
All right, moving back up here to Sony says 30% of PS Plus users are subscribed to the more expensive tiers. This comes from Andy Robinson at BGC. 30% of PlayStation Plus users are subscribed to the more expensive premium and extra tiers, Sony has claimed. The platform holder shared the subscription split stats for the first time in a business webcast on Tuesday, revealing that 8 million users, which is about 17%, are subscribed to premium, and 6.1 million, 13%, are subscribed to extra. Man, that's wild. Extra is just so much, it's obviously the better choice, but premium's like, hey, why wouldn't I go get the whole thing? Again, it's that 600,000 people that will show up for PSVR, and 8 million that are showing up for premium, even though it doesn't seem worth it still. As of March 31st, there were a total of 47.4 million PlayStation Plus subscribers total, according to Sony Interactive Entertainment's latest figures. Sony split its subscription service into 3-tiered setup last summer, adding a library of hundreds of modern and classic games. Essential is $10 a month, whereas Extra is $15 a month, and then Premium goes for $18 a month. I thought it was $17. I forgot, $18 a month. And that offers PS4, PS5 games, as well as a classic library featuring games from Sony's past console generations. I think at this point, the split and the new initiative has to be called a success. If you're getting... Really, what they've done is they found a way to take that existing PlayStation Plus subscriber base, and the people that are willing to spend more money, they give them a way to spend more money, and they're doing so. I think this has been a big win for Sony. I don't think they've grown PS Plus subscriber numbers. In fact, I think one month it dipped pretty significantly. It has jumped back up to be kind of even year over year, but they're getting more money, which is what they wanted. So I think this has worked for them. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it definitely has. And the thing with the subs is like they've come out, they've had a really good start, and they also offer the yearly, which Xbox still doesn't offer yearly subscriptions. Yep. And so you wonder like how many are yearly? Do they renew after that year? I do. This looks good, and I'm real curious where next year it ends up being if they give us this number again. Like, is it still going up? Are they still around that same percentage? Do people drop off after the year? Do people keep going or more added? But yeah, from just the first glance, it was a really smart decision.
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to Game Pass continuing to be a really smart move for Microsoft, because like there's no promise here of day one games, and it's like, and yet they are getting 8 million people subscribed for $18 per month, just based on, hey, I'm going to get a big library and some classic games, and usually those are going to be weird PSP games and occasionally a good Ridge Racer. And it's okay. That is a lot of people, and it's a significant percentage of what is subscribed to Game Pass in total. So it's like, okay, if Microsoft can actually begin delivering on day one games, it feels like they should be able to keep growing and growing and growing. But it's the big question is, are they actually going to start delivering on that? We'll have to wait for Starfield to find out. All right, let's see here. Kind of get back in order now. PlayStation is using Bungie to rigorously vet its upcoming live service games. This comes from Andy Robinson at VGC as well. PlayStation is using Bungie to rigorously vet its in-development live service games. During a business webcast on Tuesday, Sony Interactive Entertainment reiterated that it's planning to have 12 live service titles in the market by its fiscal year ending in March 2026, up from 3 during its last business year ended this March. The company said that by the end of this timescale, it expects live service games to make up 60% of its annual game development budget. This is a notable shift for Sony Interactive Entertainment, which is best known for its single-player games such as God of War and The Last of Us. SIE says it has made Destiny studio Bungie, which it acquired last summer for $3.6 billion, an integral part of ensuring these titles have the best chances of success by taking learnings from the studio's wealth of experience in the genre. To me, this was, Jesse, always the reason that Bungie was super... Obviously, it's got a live service thing that's going to generate money, and that sort of pays for the acquisition itself in a lot of ways, because it's like that money is working for you. But really, it's like, this is a company that understands live service games. They've done all the hard lessons. We need to go acquire that knowledge and make it part of Sony Interactive Entertainment. And now they said they're building processes to make that happen. My question to you is, do you think that can work? Because we've seen over and over and over again, developers have to learn the hard way. Like, for example, Naughty Dog. Do you think the Naughty Dog Factions game is going to come out and it's going to be obvious that they learned from Bungie?
They've given it enough time now, because I mean, that was supposed to be a multiplayer part of the original release, which is how many years ago? It's just giving more and more time, because the big thing is having content, and like Fortnite has an entire publisher working nonstop on it, and that's why it constantly has content. Even Call of Duty having an entire publisher is the only reason that ever constantly has content. So the reality of it is, and there was like I forget where it was, but there was a dev talk where Bungie talked about the thing they realized with their live service, and that was they were just going to realize that they are going to constantly undeliver on what people expect, but they need to do it as healthily as they can to just have that cadence, because even if the content isn't great, if you at least keep having it, it's a positive. It's long periods of not having content that end up killing you in the long run.
Right. I to me, it's like when I think about that The Last of Us Factions, whatever they end up calling it. I think Naughty Dog's going to try to do things their way, even with Bungie there kind of talking them in and say, hey, you should try this, you should try this. Because Naughty Dog is a studio that always has very strong visions, and I think they have probably a strong vision for what a long-term live service version of one of their multiplayer modes should look like. And it probably doesn't involve a lot of the best practices that does work for something like a Destiny. They might end up in that place eventually, but I do think they, for the most part, will have to learn the hard way. And I wonder if that's just because there's so much that goes into running a live service game, because it is in reality, it's a messy relationship with a whole bunch of gamers, and that's, humans are so messy and difficult to predict, and they all say one thing, and then the telemetry from their gameplay says another, and you have to reconcile those two things, and you have to say the right thing and kind of make sure you're doing the right thing at the same time, and that's stuff that is a learned process. I don't think, and it's learned by making the mistakes, I bet.
Yeah, your customers, they know what they want, but they don't know how it's made.
Yes.
So it ends up being this really bad back and forth if you interact with them too much. Because like, I know I really want this in this game, but I have absolutely no clue how you make it. But for most people, they won't care about the fact that they have no clue. Let's say, oh, how hard can it be? When the answer is, it is unbelievably hard to do anything with software coding, from everything everyone's always told me. So with a live service game, you need unbelievable balance, constant content, and fresh content, but you can't do that. So you try and hit every note you can as often as you can. And in the end, like, The Division had figured it out by the end of The Division, and then they put The Division 2 out and they forgot everything. Destiny had figured it out really well by Rise of Iron. Then they made Destiny 2 because they were told they had to by ABK, and they were like, just forgot everything they had and have been building back up to it. So even with Bungie, it's like they messed up real bad the first time. I always hear man, this next season of Destiny looks awesome. It's going to really pull me back in. And then once or twice it does. Like right before Lightfall came out, I thought their last season was awesome. And then Lightfall came out, and I thought it kind of sucked. And the first season kind of sucked. And now people are like, this next season's going to be great. I'm like, I don't know, maybe. But it's so hit or miss. And that ends up being a lot of it. You need the great base that will stay around. And then when you have really good hits, you get a ton of people back.
Yeah, when we say like they forgot, but I wonder if it's almost a matter of making a game initially is kind of the antithesis of running a live service game, and all the stuff that it takes to get something off the ground doesn't have a lot to do with then actually having that game be a live ongoing business operation. So it's like they know that stuff. They're like, we okay, well, we can't do anything about that right now. We have this problem that exists in just trying to make a game in the first place. And and so that transition is probably going to be difficult. I still think having Bungie there is going to be helpful, though. Yeah, go ahead.
With Halo Infinite, you just don't have a live service team, and then that's it. You got to build it up for 2 years.
I me's the way to do it. That's just brilliance. You can't have live service problems if you don't have a live service team. They I've always heard that it's Bungie is a Sony business, not a PlayStation business.
Yeah.
And I definitely, you could see Jim Ryan kind of trying to bridge that gap a little bit, but it also sounds like, oh yeah, we work with them in a way. Like I'll just read this. We've been working with Bungie for almost a year, and the learnings in both directions have been very significant. They surpassed my expectations, and equally, I think Bungie is extremely excited by what they could take from SIE in terms of market reach, marketing, collaboration, and the ability to amplify their IP. We've brought quite a lot to Bungie, just as they've certainly brought quite a lot to us. They historically have been a heavily U.S. focused publisher, with their IP underexploited in key markets of Europe and Asia. SIE is extremely strong and extremely experienced in Europe and Asia, and we are just starting the process of reigniting Bungie's presence and game awareness in those regions. I'd also say we have a marketing machine that, in my view, is world-class, and setting them to work on activating Bungie's games, IP, and brand, I think is going to take their awareness and size of their business to a size they've never seen before. So it sounds like it's like, we are going to offer them what Sony Interactive Entertainment can provide, and try to get them on board with us, and say, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It feels more like the limited integration thing than being, because they're not under them, they're beside them almost in that sense. Yeah,
yes, exactly. And it's but I think if that's the position, he's playing it as best he can, I think, and this is the right strategy. And I'm sure like all this stuff is conditional on Bungie coming in and providing its lessons and the things it has learned on live service games to Sony Interactive Entertainment and all its studios. I mean, that I have heard that is happening. That has been happening for a long time. It just the idea of those lessons being taken to heart, that I haven't heard so much.
Yeah, even if you can give all the lessons in the world, but it's going to take them doing it themselves to really get it. And so they might have a bunch of failures at first, but they're such an enormous business that they'll have time to learn. It's like the same thing. Microsoft was pretty much done with Xbox in like 2017. And so but they're so big, they can just eat all of it until they finally get back going. And with PlayStation, they're killing it so hard right now that even if they struggle with the live service stuff to begin with, it is the right move to push that way because it is just so much more of a moneymaker.
All right, last story from this Sony conference with investors. Nintendo's brand momentum has been flat since 2018, says Sony. This comes from Ollie Reynolds at Nintendo Life. When it comes to investor relations, big brands like to big themselves up. It's only natural, of course, for companies to attract more interest and therefore more money. It makes perfect sense for them to paint themselves in the best light possible. However, during Sony's most recent business segment meeting, its section on the game and network services showcased a chart that frankly made us furrow our brows in collective confusion, and we're not alone, as Stephen Totillo from Axios has also voiced doubt over the validity of the data on Twitter. Here is the chart, everybody. I'll show it to video watchers and try to explain it for people listening audibly. That's not right. The chart in question measures the overall brand momentum for the three top dogs in gaming: PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox. Although Nintendo and Xbox are labeled as brand B and brand C, but they're red and green, so I think we know who they mean. Basically, it has Sony in the 60s, and then it peaks in the 70s, like a 73 with the launch of the PlayStation 5, and then it settles back down into the mid 60s. Nintendo has been mid 50s since 2018, according to this chart, and has not budged really. It's moved up a little bit to like 58. And then Xbox is in the mid 40s, and then it peaked at 49 with the Xbox Series launch. Okay, this is a weird one, and that this is internal Sony data. Listen, I absolutely believe that the PlayStation 5 has a ton of momentum and brand awareness, and it's only grown in the last several years. Absolutely. It is hard for me to grok that Nintendo is significantly behind PlayStation, because we're talking about a company that just launched a $1 billion movie. They have launched a theme park, a successful theme park in multiple countries. They have launched a Zelda game that is going to sell 20 million copies very quickly. It's already sold 10 million copies in 3 days, something that no PlayStation game has done. I don't know if this is exactly right. I don't know. How do you feel about this?
It's also like, what is their definition for momentum?
Right. Is this
like,
based on their values, what they matter?
Yeah.
And does that work backwards for what has worked for them in the past?
Because like they're also 3 companies going for 3 very different platforms. So in the end, like Sony is the big first party tentpole stuff, which is going to be less and less single player and more just trying to cover every genre they can and continuous service now. But it had been mostly for that point. We are just your default place to play everything. Nintendo we've got the best first party. We're a little weaker, but we still have tons of third party multiplats, and Xbox wants to be we're everywhere for everything. We don't care about winning any category. We just want to be good enough in all of them that we become this giant 50 tentacled monster that sneaks up on people. So like, what is the momentum category? Because we had a piece where we were just looking up like global trends for Google searches, and it's actually shockingly even between all of them, where Xbox is normally a little higher globally on Google searches, Sony a little lower, Nintendo a little lower, and then PC gaming, which is really hard to get because there's so many different ways people search PC gaming in the middle of those. So like they're all technically making a ton of money, doing really well. So in the end, like what does this category actually mean to them? And I didn't see anything that broke that down.
Yeah, this is a chart that's impossible for us to parse from the outside, and I think it's meant to be that way because again, I think Ollie nailed it. This is about them speaking in a way to investors in a way that's like, we are big and we are only going to get bigger, and look how much bigger we are than our little brothers over here. And I think as far as everyone in chat is like having the same reaction that we're having, like, come on, Jimbo, come on, this doesn't feel exactly right.
Just so much corporate speak in all these things that just for the normal human being that parses it in a logical way instead of like executives are paid to say things that sound great to investors. Like
Absolutely.
That's their main job is to not speak the truth or English. They are to sell their investors on why they are so good. That
takes us delicately or delectably into our next story about Embracer Group, which did not do exactly that. They did not sweet talk their investors, and boy, are they paying the price. So let's start here with Embracer Group's net sales rise to $3.5 billion in what its CEO described as a challenging year. This comes from James Batchelor at GamesIndustry.biz. Embracer Group has published its financial results for the full year, showing growth in net sales across the board. But despite the solid performance in terms of sales, co-founder and group CEO Lars Wingefors opened his comments by describing the 12-month period as a challenging year impacted by game delays, weaker demand from consumers, and a lackluster reception for certain notable releases. One example given was the lower than expected return on investment for Saints Row Reboot. When it comes to the numbers, net sales were 9.4 billion Swedish kroner, which is about $879.4 million. That's up 79% year over year. PC console sales were up 66%. Mobile was down 25%. And that was for the 3 months ended March 31st. For the entire year, net sales were up 121%. PC console sales were up 58%, and mobile was up 19%. The biggest seller for the most recent quarter was SpongeBob SquarePants: The Cosmic Shake. While this was initially performed below management's expectations, the company expects it to have a long tail of revenue. All that sounds pretty good, right? It sounds pretty good, but they seem to be setting up investors for the expectation that things won't be so bright going forward, and they did so in a way that sounds very troublesome or very worrisome. And that's this next story. Embracer Group shares plunge, like stock shares plunge after $2 billion deal falls through late last night. This comes from Jim Norman at Nintendo Life. Embracer Group, the owners of huge IPs, including the Lord of the Rings, Tomb Raider, and Borderlands, has seen its shared price drop by a whopping 39.28%. It's actually, I think it's dropped about 45% since then.
Yeah.
Not from that point, but like in total. And that's in the past day after it announced the surprise negative outcome of a potential $2 billion contracted development deal. The drop occurred this morning following the candid public statement from the company as a part of its quarterly sales report. In this statement, the Swedish company explained that the deal would have enabled a catch-up payment for already capitalized costs for a range of large-budget games and would have improved future profit predictions on games currently in development. However, quote, late last night, the company was surprised to have received a negative outcome from the counterparty, the statement continues. Embracer Group has since adjusted its earnings on the year from Swedish kroner 10.3 billion to Swedish kroner 13.6 billion, down to, and now that's going to be down to a range of 7 billion to 9 billion Swedish kroner. As noted by Twitter, Twitter user Dr. Serkin Todo, CEO of Japan games industry consultant company Canton Games. Toto is awesome. Serkin's great. The deal falling through had an almost immediate impact on shares in Embracer. Toto suggests that investors may have seen the statement as an excuse for disappointing performance. And that's exactly how I think investors are reading it. Where, hey, we are going to have a rough road to hoe going forward, and it's because of this darn deal falling through. And that sounds like such a weak position to put yourself in. You were relying on this big deal from a third party, and now that money's not coming in, you're saying that was going to make up for payments on already capitalized projects, things that are already happening. So where's that money going to come from now? This just sounds like the house is on fire. And of course investors are fleeing now because you sound incompetent. I think this speaks to the trouble with Embracer as a whole. Because, and we'll just do this next story and then we'll talk about it in total. Dead Island 2 smashes past 2 million sales. This comes from Chris Moyes at Destructoid. The Dead Island 2, the open world sequel that took over a decade to launch and everybody was entirely convinced was going to go be complete shit, has now sold 2 million copies. That should be a banner success for Embracer. Mm-hmm. That should be like, oh, we've done that. We are the Cosmic Shake, SpongeBob's doing great. We're strutting our stuff. We're doing great over here. But Embracer Group is so big, so sprawling, and they've made their bet on, we are going to be enormous and we're going to make all these massive deals, that a game selling 2 million copies that everyone expected to be shit doesn't even matter. It doesn't have any positive effect. And now this company is actually looking like it's in big trouble. I never fully understood Embracer, but now it feels like I don't think they understood it either. How are you feeling about it?
I have a friend in the industry who always looked at Embracer and said, I can't wait for that ball to drop, because they just were like, this isn't sustainable. This seems weird. This isn't how any of this works. They're just endlessly spending money without great prospects for ever making it back. And are they behind that Lord of the Ring Gollum game that's hitting tomorrow?
Yeah, that feels like one that might have started like prior to their takeover of Lord of the Rings. It almost certainly did. But I mean, they have to be involved. I think so. Yeah.
But yeah, there's just they're so big, covering so many smaller things. Like they didn't get anything super profitable AAA, because even the places they bought that are great, like Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Interactive, never seem to be able to make money for Square, despite putting out really good games. So they always seemed like a thing that was going to collapse horribly at some point. And the fact that it happened this quick is surprising, but the fact that it's happened, I'm not actually that surprised.
Yeah, I think the market reality changed, which was always a risk, right? COVID happened and gaming was popping off and it was easy to acquire stuff. And then the pandemic, as far as most people are concerned, was something in the past, and now they're going to go outside again. And now we have an overheated economy that the globe is trying to slow down with higher interest rates. So money's going to be harder to come by, even in Europe, which is like how Embracer was funding a lot of this stuff, where these studios were kind of like they were acquiring studios in markets that weren't like super overpriced, and they were coming from a market that had a lot of money to hand out in Europe, where it's like, hey, we are desperate for investments in Europe. Like we're looking all over the place. We want to be investing everywhere. So they were able to get a lot of cheap money, and that has almost certainly dried up to a certain extent. And now they have to find a way to take what they have and make money with it. but it feels like they were stopped as part of an incomplete thought of, we were almost going to be so big. And it's like, I don't know if they were ever actually going to get to this mythical land where Embracer was so big that it just made sense. That feels like something that was never actually real, but they definitely weren't there yet. And I think it's evident by multiple successful games that like we didn't think were going to be successful. And close to AAA game. I mean, Dead Island 2 is definitely, I think, a AAA game. And it's not like some Game of the Year contender, but 2 million copies of that game is... It's just good. It's just a really good, successful launch for a game like that. And they said it did better than their expectations. But if that's not good enough, and it doesn't seem like it's anywhere close to good enough for making this company money, you have put yourself in a situation where I don't think you can succeed. And Embracer just seems like a mess.
Yeah, they always seem like were they just building up to be as big as they could to get bought? Almost.
Right. And you know, so that $2 billion deal doesn't sound like it was that. It sounds like they said a development deal.
Just investment, yeah.
Right. Similar to what was probably happening with Lord of the Rings stuff and Amazon and Embracer. Like one of those
Tomb
deals.
Raider,
and Tomb Raider, exactly. And it's like, so they had another one of those lined up. And now the third party is saying no to that. I mean,
they even farmed out Crystal Dynamics to Microsoft to help make Perfect Dark. Like
that happened under Square Enix, right? But they're honoring that deal. Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was after. But
I think that was just before. That was just before they sold them off. So Embracer fully aware of that at the very least.
Yeah, Embracer seems very. We got all this money. We're going to invest it, and then oh crap, we're not actually making enough back compared to what we've invested, and it looks like we're not going to get that big. It's like the investor who's like, oh, I'm working on this deal. I've been talking to this guy on the phone. He's promising that the deposit's going to be there next week. It's going to be there next week. And then the deposit doesn't show up and he's just shocked. And everyone else is like, well, we never met him. We don't even know who he is. That was never going to happen. And it feels like Embracer's in that weird pseudo in control mode, but they're really, really reliant on other people actually paying for everything in the end.
Yeah. I see people in the Twitch chat saying they don't think Dead Island 2 is a AAA game, and I get that, but also like it's a $60 relatively big budget game, and it's definitely something we would have considered AAA like last generation, right? And definitely the generation before that.
We need a bigger than AAA thing, because there are games like
I think it's right. There's an inflation happening. Yes, like I think there is a raising of the bar constantly happening with the biggest games, and it's like, of course it's not God of War, like of course it's not, but it's I mean, it's pretty big. I mean, it's not that much less than a Jedi Survivor in terms of quality. Yeah, sure. But in terms of like content and how it play, like it's like, yeah, it's not as big as that, but it's like pretty close. I'll give you AA, but to me that feels like a really minor distinction.
If we're sticking to the old AAA AA, then it's the very tippity top of...
Yes.
If it had a bigger marketing budget, it would push into AAA. Like, that's one of the big things with AAA is just their ridiculous marketing budgets.
And it's like, if we maybe used Embracer as like, this is like one of the bigger games from Embracer for sure. And it's the closest thing to a AAA out of Embracer, I think.
Yeah.
So it's... what does that matter? I don't know if any of that matters, but I think...
it doesn't matter to us anyways.
Yeah, 2 million copies sold is what should matter, and it doesn't. That's a problem. Yeah. All right, moving on here. Mortal Kombat 1 gameplay to be shown at Summer Game Fest. This comes from Eric Hiddleback Furu at Game Reactor. The day before Mortal Kombat 1 was officially announced, yours truly speculated that this would happen with a CG trailer and that gameplay would be saved for the PlayStation showcase. I was right about the first part, but was wrong about the second. Jeff Keighley has sent us a press release revealing that the first Mortal Kombat 1 gameplay trailer will be shown at Summer Game Fest on June 8th. So we'll have to wait 2 weeks longer to see the game in action. And that's a little bit longer than everyone was hoping. But hey, at least we have a date and we know for sure. This sounds right. There's been in rumblings that this game would show up that weekend and we'd be able to kind of maybe see it. So now it's guaranteed. Yeah, it's going to be there. That's cool. I'm ready to see this game in action and see like what the cameo characters look like and how those jump in assist look, things like that. And
it should have the full effects like Marvel vs. Capcom did when they had their jumping characters.
Exactly. I want them to go all out with it and make it look really... I want it to look very different than Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and 11, because they always do the 3 games and then reboot, 3 games and then try something different, 3 games and try something different. And here we are. We're in that. They've taken years to kind of get to this point with this game. They're calling it Mortal Kombat 1. Yeah, it's a continuation of the story in some ways, but it's also a chance for a reboot. That's what they're calling it. So what does that look like in terms of gameplay? I'm ready to see. They don't have to do much in terms of visuals because they went for that ultra photorealistic, like especially for faces tech with the last 3 games. And boy, that's really good. And they should probably just stick with that going forward. But and in terms of gameplay, I want to see a little bit of a difference there.
Funny thing about Mortal Kombat is originally Nick had said it was supposed to be a PlayStation show, so he's wrong.
Oh man!
So everyone who hates him was right. He was wrong.
Get that guy. Let's see. So someone just handed. Stephen Totillo, investor question. Could you? This is going back to Embracer real quick. Could you please clarify the current status of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic remake in regards to its development status and what shape it is in? Embracer's CEO Wingerforce answered, "Favorite question." Then chuckles and says, "I have no further comments." This became a little bit of a thing because I speculated on my show, Jesse, that that game will never come out. And that was, it was me kind of like mostly joking to myself, but also I think I truly do believe it'll never come out, but it's a belief.
What would a KOTOR remake be if Sony's behind it? They want big, beautiful, prestige, modern action RPG-ish, not turn-based. Like remaking that game in that style would be so much money and time that it never seemed realistic to me. Like if you're going to do a KOTOR remake, it would be a graphical remake. If you're doing a full gameplay overhaul and all that, and you're making essentially a new game, that's like 7-8 year AAA.
I mean, it sounds like something that BioWare maybe could do, but BioWare was not involved. This was going to be a Spire, and now Spire is off that project since it's been announced. Apparently, they showed this stuff internally. Everyone was really mad about it. They said this is not good enough. We're going to go have Saber Interactive do it instead. Saber Interactive, I adore. I love a lot of the stuff they've done. Obviously, they did SnowRunner, one of my game of the year, the year that game came out. That's still a big thing for Saber Interactive, a team that is very technically savvy. But you're talking about this is a whole massive AAA quad A project. If we want to like actually walk into those waters,
it would have to be the biggest. That would be like the biggest of the big budget wise for that type of game to be done to the Sony prestige scope is gonna, because KOTOR is enormous. It's a humongous space opera RPG with tons of choice and different outcomes and all that stuff. So if you're literally remaking it, but with new gameplay, new graphics, new audio, new everything, that's a massive project that's going to take an incredibly long time to make.
This is
cost a lot.
This is frustrating. Steven followed up saying Wingerforce was about to say more about the question. He started with "I don't want," but then the investor relations interviewer spoke over him, and then Wingerforce just stopped. And then Santillo says, and this is a very good point, good lessons for interviewers is that silence is golden, and just let the person you're interviewing speak. Let them actually answer, because they're going to go into interesting places. They're probably going to say stuff you weren't expecting, as long as you just shut the fuck up Friday. All right, let's we're running out of time. Let's hit these last handful of stories.
Are one-on-one. You give a question, you wait for the answer, and then you got that follow-up. Oh, it's the best.
Yep. So turn in for Giant Bomb at night at Summer Game Fest, where I'm gonna have like 6 people on the couch at a time. Let's fucking go. Mortal Kombat 1 gameplay to be shown at Summer Game Fest. I just did that story. What am I doing? Unexpected 3DS update breaks many common homebrew hacking methods. This comes from Kyle Orland at Ars Technica. It has been years since Nintendo stopped producing its Nintendo 3DS line of portable hardware, and months since the company officially shut down the 3DS eShop for new downloadable game purchases. So, read, that means they aren't making money from the 3DS anymore. And yet, Nintendo has updated 3DS with firmware version 11.17.0-50, and it's the first official system update for the console since last September, and the 5th update since the hardware was officially discontinued in 2020. The official patch notes for the sudden update cover the now standard, if vague, promises of further improvements to overall system stability and other minor adjustments that have been made to enhance the user experience. But console hacking groups quickly noted that downloading the update ruined many of the documented hacking methods that could previously be used to install custom 3DS firmware. And it seems to be almost the point of this update, although maybe that's just a side effect. Now, since this has happened last night, the homebrew community has pretty much solved this problem.
Yeah, EU and JP consoles are already fixed, and they said US should be coming shortly.
Yep, man. It's like it was always going to happen, and I'm not too surprised that it didn't take even 24 hours. I don't know. I don't get Nintendo though. Why are they doing this?
Nintendo really hates their customers.
Yeah,
most of the time they just don't like them ever doing. Like, if you're not making any money from it anymore, just from the what's the point? This just feels petty in this case.
Right. I kind of wonder if it's like a sentiment thing where they're like, we don't want people associating Nintendo with homebrew and piracy. And even if it's a system that is basically dead, actually dead, we don't want it to be like the meme was the 3DS is the best thing, a hacked 3DS you could do this and that with. Like that's a joke, like on like TikTok and places. Like people joke about using their hacked 3DS all the time. And I wonder if they want to like sort of quell that a little bit so that people just don't associate Nintendo with piracy. I think this is going to Streisand affect it a little bit and not really accomplish what they want to accomplish, because now it's just going to be like homebrew groups have already solved this new update, and that's going to be the headline now. So
the thing they need to do is what Xbox did and actually solve piracy then, if they want, which I don't think is a better solution for us as customers. But like, you don't get hacked Xbox Ones, Series X's, or Series X's because of that chip they got on the board that doesn't let them do anything. You can, but then they do open it up in other ways. I don't know. It's always the weirdest relationship with Nintendo and the people that want to use their stuff. So,
yep. I love how they hate me. They hate me the best way possible. Now I'm here for more of it. Please hurt me, Nintendo. All right, last couple of stories. Sega has laid off 121 employees at Company of Heroes studio Relic. This comes from Tom the Machine Ivan at VGC. Sega Europe has laid off 121 employees at Relic Entertainment. The Vancouver, Canada-based studio specializes in real-time strategy games, including Company of Heroes, Age of Empires, and Homeworld. In a statement, Relic said Sega and the studio remain fully committed to supporting and investing in our titles, including Company of Heroes 3, which was released for PC in February, and is coming to consoles in May. Company of Heroes 3, I was never a Company of Heroes guy. I was interested in 3, and then I heard from that community that they were mostly disappointed, might be overstatement, but they were definitely disappointed. And I wonder if these layoffs are the effect of that game disappointing people and then not selling as well as expected. That seems to be the case. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it sounds like. We got offered reviewing it, and people who had played it on PC when the Xbox version was coming out, they were like, I've got a code. Do you want to review it? And everyone's like, no, I don't want to play any more of that. I was like, oh, crap. Because I remember I really liked Relic's work, and I liked but didn't love the earlier ones. And yeah, this one did not seem to hit, and this just really sucks.
Relic is the top tier when it comes to this genre of real-time strategy game. A lot of people really associate their games with the best the genre has to offer. I know that Company of Heroes is a game that people just absolutely have always loved. Is this a sign of that genre continuing to become more and more of a niche?
I hope not. Man, that would suck. Did they do Total War Warhammer?
No, is that Certain Affinity? No,
it might be. I always get them confused, and then I feel very bad about it. But yeah, there's not a ton of people that do big games. That was Creative Assembly.
I always mix those two up.
Yes, but yeah, so there's only like a few really big ones left. Like even Blizzard doesn't really do much anymore with poor old StarCraft. So I hope not. It's a genre I don't love, but a few games I really liked. Man, it just sucks.
All right, last story here. Indie games get overlooked for indie game gets overlooked for Xbox. Publisher suddenly changes decision. The indie game. Here we go. From Ben Carey and Fraser Gilbert at Pure Xbox. Indie publisher Microids brings lots of its titles to Xbox platforms, with the majority of its games arriving as full multi-platform releases these days. However, one game currently under the team's wings isn't coming to Xbox as of now, and the response from the publisher is causing a bit of a stir on social media. The title in question is Smart Tales Games' Inspector Gadget Mad Time Party, which is currently planned to launch on PlayStation and PC platforms. When asked why that is the case, Microids hinted that there isn't enough demand for the game to launch on Xbox right now, and they said if the demand is strong enough, we will consider the possibility of offering the title on Xbox. A lot of people pointed out, it's like, how are we supposed to demand this thing that we didn't know existed until you announced it wasn't coming to Xbox? Yeah.
And there was another thing they had just announced that is coming that no one had heard of and no one could demand.
Yes. Yeah, like that. It's becoming a bit of a trend. It's something, one of those things I wish that Kind of Funny Games developed a game, or the interview with Phil Spencer. If they had more time, I think they would have got around to like, hey, what's with a lot of games not coming to Xbox? And I kind of want to hear his answer on that stuff. So hopefully
a lot of this stuff feels like, and I don't know if you remember Hypercharged Unboxed. people use smaller companies, smaller devs using Twitter to kind of generate hype and interest in their game. Like, this wouldn't have been a story if they hadn't given this response, and just like a lot of games don't go to certain platforms and then there's no kerfluffle about it because the companies never respond. But this type of thing gets your game talked about.
And it did get it talked about, and they seem to have been ready for this contingency. The update to the story as well. We didn't expect to be giving you an update to this quickly. Just a day after announcing that Inspector Gadget Mad Time Party would be coming to Xbox if the demand is strong enough, publisher Microids has decided that the demand is indeed strong enough, and therefore an Xbox version will be available in digital form. Crazy. So didn't take them long to be like, oh, it popped off a little bit on Twitter. We should play into this because it seems like it's going to help. And doing a digital version probably doesn't take too much time or effort, really. Obviously, there's investment there, and I think a lot of these companies are making the profit and loss chart of it takes this much money to put something on Xbox. We would expect these many sales, and to be fair, indie games do sell pretty poorly on Xbox, and they always have. That's been the truth through all of time now. And I point always back to a chart that was on the Shovel Knight developers website, where they showed like the 3DS and the Wii U significantly more than PlayStation and Steam, and then those were significantly more than Xbox. And I think that's probably holds true for most indie games. But you still get some sales on Xbox, and I think that they're like, well, now that it's a story, now that it's a headline, this could be part of our marketing beat, and we'll take this as a positive momentum, and that justifies doing the Xbox version. You kind of hope this doesn't become a trend of companies holding the Xbox version hostage, but also I think it comes down a little bit to Xbox incentivizing these developers to do more with their games on Xbox, because
they talk about they've got a deal in Japan where they've got a thing like, if you just agree to either, doesn't have to be exclusive as long as it's the same release time, because I do think a lot of issues with ports has been they've just been a lot later, and when a port's later, a lot of those people who own both systems have already played it somewhere else. So when like they set up a system in Japan where we'll help fund the development of your game as long as it comes out on time in parity, like that type of stuff. So the more they have that, and the big one is Square Enix, which really liked Game Pass deals, and it feels really like they want really lucrative Game Pass deals to put anything on there anymore. So that's always the issue. If you blink, then it becomes standard, and then you just got to pay to get what everyone else gets for free, essentially. So, and I don't know.
And it's you could see Xbox's position of being like, we don't want everyone to think we're gonna be softies and pay up to get their game on Xbox. We want it to be enticing on its own. It's like, okay, then find a way to make that side of stuff happen. Do make it more enticing just to port things the typical way without you having to sweeten the deal. Because I understand the slippery slope argument there, for sure.
One angle for them is if you make a PC version, you just get an Xbox version. Like, that's the selling point of the GDK, if they can get that to that point. Making it's more, I think that their long-term goal for just becoming a more default place for games to come out on time is to just become a bigger platform in general, to the point where it's like, oh, well, we might as well put our thing out on there because they're so big. That's probably their main play, instead of just constantly paying everyone for a port. Yep.
All right, let's get to the poll. Monday, I asked, how high are your expectations to the PlayStation Showcase for being the highest? I actually didn't put this on Twitter until today, but we got lots of votes. 7.7% say they have one, and it's a four-star scale for your hype levels. 7.7% gave it a 1. 14.5% have a 2 level excitement. 30.3% are at a 3, and 47.5% are at the highest of 4. That's pretty high expectations. I think mine are up there too.
Time.
Yes,
I'd be at 4 if I wasn't not going to be home and not able to watch it live. So I gave it a 3.
Fair enough. I'm up there to 4. I really want them to come out there with delivering all the stuff they've talked about before, and a lot of surprises. And I think they're probably going to deliver.
Yeah, it's been so long, and I thought the last one started well, ended well, but was kind of meh in the middle. And I'm hoping they just have like a constant banger after banger type thing. Not big games, just interesting things.
Yep. Right. And I think that and the word going around is this is going to be a very good showcase. Like, that is what people keep telling me, and I believe them. And so let's find out. We're going to find out in a handful of hours. Again, talk over here on giantbomb.com. I have a new poll. Do you have a hacked 3DS? We're going to put that up on the YouTube. Jan will get that. It's like yes or no. Do you have a hacked 3DS? I just want to hear if how many people actually have done this and see if it's a significant number. I will say that maybe I know somebody in this house that has one, and it's her back there.
Why is Bacalar trying to tell you to read what he wrote in Twitch chat? Not even Giant Bomb chat.
Twitch chat. In Twitch chat?
Yeah.
Let's see here.
If you
read what I wrote.
More.
Jeff Bacalar says 4 is the cum level, I hear. I did read that, actually, and I did not see the name Jeff Bacalar above it. Jeff Bacalar says that 4 is the cum level, everybody. Mm-hmm. So if you're at a 4, you're ready to come. All right, let's get out of here. Yeah, she can't hear anything. All right, Jesse, where can people find you? What do you got going on?
XboxEra.com. We are there. We launched a store because why not?
Sure.
So we've got like Xbox games, Xbox codes, eventually Xbox consoles and all that shit. Affiliated with Xbox itself. Cool. But yeah, XboxEra.com. We got forums that are good. Discord.gg/XboxEra. We have a Discord that's very good. Jeff Grubb's on there. Never talks because I don't expect any industry people to talk because then you get bothered nonstop. But we have cool emojis. And you can snipe those if you got Discord Nitro. Yes, XboxEra.com.
All right, Jesse, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I really appreciate it, man.
You're welcome.
Thank you all for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Again, tune in for Four Swords Fiesta. We'll be going from that right into the PlayStation talkover. So that mean, what time are we starting that? Probably, because that's at 4. Probably at 2 p.m. I think we're starting at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So hang out here around then, and then we'll take care of you during the PlayStation Showcase. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, everybody. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. See you for the PlayStation Showcase. Level 4 is the cum level.